that is my repair panel all prepped. I've welded in a piece in that corner. I haven't gone stupid cleaning up the back side because I want the strength. Front side I've smoothed off, but I didn't go crazy with it. You can still see the weld lines there, and I'm not going to sand it anymore because, as I say, I want the strength. This is you know, the reason this thing cracked in the first place is because of the stresses through the bulkhead when someone presses on the clutch pedal. So the last thing I want to do is weaken the bit of metal I'm putting back in. That's where it's going to go. I'm going to bring the sander out and clean the flanges off a bit, neaten it all up, and then I don't know whether I'm going to weld it in fully tonight, but I might tack it. That's going to go in there. I can get pretty good access all the way around. I've deliberately left a bit of a flange or a return on there so they're not trying to weld into a corner. That way hopefully it's just, you know, a dead simple piece welded onto another piece, and then when it's finished I'll just nip the tops of the welds off and then put a coat of seam sealer over it. Right, I've cleaned all that up with the drill. Nice clean metal to weld to. I'm gonna go over that area now with some, I don't know if you can see it, it's so dark, weld through primer, just to protect it, and particularly the bits between the new patch and the old bulkhead, and should be able to weld through that okay as well. Because I'm a cautious kind of guy and I'm here by myself in a dark lonely car park, I've got the hose pipe out, so if the worst comes to the worst and I set the bulkhead on fire, hopefully I can put it out. So all painted up now, and I've got my earth on. I've put a bit of rag in there to try and just stop sparks landing on the insulation, because the paper will be harder to ignite than the insulation. And I'm going to tack that on now, and then go around it and spot seam it in afterwards. I wasn't sure, like, I didn't actually take a reference measurement for that, but what I've done is I've measured from the centres of the brake and clutch pedal levers inside the car. So I know it's 155mm from the centre of the clutch point to the centre of the servo. So I've got that, that's what that black line there is now. That lines up with the centre of those holes. So it's going to be in the correct position. So nothing else now, but other than to spark up the welder and tack it in place. Good news so far, tacked in and the car's not on fire. So I'm going to go and get my hammer and tap that flange down so it meets the bulkhead. I might tap up from inside the car out as well, just to get a nice good like fit between the two parts. And then just very slowly go around tacking that in until it's built up to a full seam. That should keep the heat down and reduce the risk of it all catching fire. Been going for a few minutes now. Got a nice bead down there. It's a bit crappy across the top, but it's because there's a bit of shit still on the bulkhead that's burning off. So they're the easy bits because you can get to them. Next I'm going to go down there. I've actually managed to get this crowbar through there, which allows me to pull the bulkhead forward onto my panel, reducing the gap and making for a better weld. So I'm just going to ease that down in there, pull that bulkhead forward and just progressively tack it as I have been doing with this side. And if you can keep the heat in it without setting fire to the bulkhead insulation panels on the back side, then you can actually get quite nice welds. So yeah, I'll just carry on and see how far I get. Get in there. Done all the way along the top, down there to the bottom. I've done most of the way down that side. It's just that bottom corner is proving to be a bit of a pain in the arse. Car still hasn't caught fire, which is good, but my back is absolutely killing me because I'm having to lean right over the front wing to get into the harder to reach parts of the engine bay. Really, now I've got as far as I have, I need to finish it, then I can nip it off and just put some of that like paint back over the top of it, just to stop a bit of flash rusting. I've got some acid etch with me, or I've got some more of that zinc. I'm not sure what I'm going to put on it yet. Neither one of them is actually waterproof, but it'll stop the humid air attacking it. So yeah, just the last little bit to finish up, and then I can call it a night. Right, first moment of excitement. I did actually just properly set the car on fire. I'm seriously pleased that I had that hose pipe, because the foam that's on the bulkhead just went up like anything. So I've had to drown the whole area in water, but disaster averted. It looks worse than it is. Most of that damage to the bulkhead panel is me trying to get access in order to weld it. But yeah, I'm realising that a lot of my problems are the fact that I'm trying to do it in pretty adverse conditions outside in December. I think it's December 17th today. It is soggy, it is damp, I'm cold, the car's cold, and I'm going to call it a night before I really ruin something or set the car on fire again. I'm going to hang around to make sure that that doesn't spark up again, because it could well be smouldering in there. You can still see it smoking. It's 99% done. It's just that bottom right corner that's proving really difficult to get to. Part of the problem is trying to get good light, because I've got a light reacting helmet, but if you have the LED torch too close, it just thinks you're looking at the weld, so it switches itself off, which means you can't see where you're welding, and then when you do strike up, you could be a few millimeters off. So it's getting really frustrating. I think I will just use the grinder to nib the top of those welds off and shoot some etch primer on it, just to stop it from flash rusting, as I said earlier. I lied. After I got the grinder out and tidied it up, that kind of, the heat from that dried out the water that I'd put on that area, and I thought, stuff it, I've got the welder out here and the grinder and all the tools, I can't really be bothered to do it all over again. So I just carried on, and I have now finished that bit down the bottom. It does get a bit uglier down there, but considering, you know, what I started with and sort of access I've got, and the fact that it's really cold, I've got a bad back, and I'm starting to just want to go and get some food. Yeah, it's not a bad job. It's a lot better than had I just chosen to plate it, so I'm glad that Simon had that gold donor car that could donate some parts. Really, the next step is to chop most of this scuttle out, get rid of that old bonnet latch, and probably the windscreen wiper mechanism that's behind there. That'll give me better access to get into that sort of scuttle area from the top. I'll get as much of that surface rust off, and then I'll start picking apart that donor panel I got with a view to stitching it all together. I also need to cut some of this out and keep it, because believe it or not, that circular indentation is better on there than it is in part of my donor panel. So I'll want to salvage that part, stitch it into there, and then when I've chopped the windscreen out, and I've fixed the bulkhead, I can put that panel, where is it, up there, back on top, repair the rest of the windscreen frame, put my new windscreen in, and this part of the car should be done. It's just the rest of it that's a mess that'll need doing now. Never mind. Little steps. I've decided to put some acid etch over the top of it, U-pole acid etch. You just need a light dusting, but that should eat into that surface metal. Then I can put any kind of glossy top coat colour on it, and that should keep it waterproof until I've welded up the rest of it. So yeah, I'm going to give it a dusting of that, and then some gloss black, and then later on when I come to paint the whole bulkhead, I could just sand it all back to metal again. Etch primer's on. Now just going to give it some gloss black. It won't stay black, it's just to seal it, because that, I'm probably boring you with this bit. The etch primer isn't waterproof, and I don't really want all this hard work to be for nothing. So this has been in some warm water for a while. Just going to give it a dusting. Oh well, you get the idea. Done. I'm calling it a night. That's not going to rust anytime soon. I'm going to pack up now. It really is miserable tonight. It's not actually raining, it's just damp and cold and grim. So yeah, going to go and get some food and think about what to do next.